What are the four different types of classes in commercial real estate? Well, let's break them down a little bit. And in my experience, this really depends on a person's background. And that's kind of what they start investing in. And when I say background, I mean their experiences and what they've gone through and the types of businesses they've been involved with, the type of job they've had. That's usually what I've seen. I've worked with enough people to see that's kind of the way they start to venture out into their business. So most people, if they want to get into multifamily, which is the first property class, multifamily is the easiest property class to get into. Apartments is probably the simplest one. It's very easy to understand. The contracts are very straightforward. And when I mean contracts, I mean the leases, right? The lease negotiations. So you're going to rent for 1 year, 6 months. It's not very often somebody rents a 2-bedroom for 4 years or 5 years. It just doesn't happen with rental increases and all that. You just don't typically see that sort of thing. Now, if someone used to be a single family home investor and maybe they're buying up a couple of houses and they're renting them out, you'll see the next evolutionary step is going to be apartments, maybe a 10-unit building or something along those lines. And that's usually what I've seen them go after. Most new investors want to get into this class as well. And this is just because it's simple. It's really the easiest class. You go to the bank, they're the ones they're favored, they want to get financed. That's usually the easiest class to do. Now, switching over, another asset class would be retail. So retail, I think, has a lot of advantages, growth potential, all that fun stuff is there. The thing with retail is the lease negotiations tend to be a little bit different. So if you're looking at retail property, and I'm not talking about having Home Depot in there or Walmart. I'm talking about simple retail, like a 5-unit, something like that, where you have a barber shop, a sandwich shop, something small. And most of the time, most beginner rookie investors don't typically go after this class. It's probably a business owner that wants to buy the building. That's typically how they usually get in there. Unless they have some money and somebody tells them about this deal, they'll look at it that way. And that's kind of what I've seen. That's not always the case. That's usually what it is. Another class you can get into is office. So office buildings, and maybe someone's had a corporate background for a while. Maybe they were some kind of contractor in construction and they have experience with this type of thing. Office buildings are a little bit different in that sense, depending on where they are. It's not so much based on location as retail would be. So on a retail property, you really have to have a good prime location. And if you have a burger shop or anything that requires a lot of foot traffic, right? Like nail salon, barbers, anything service type, you really have to be on a good location. In an office building, that's not necessarily the case. Nobody needs to walk by an office every single day. They usually make an appointment and they go to it that sort of way. Same thing with an apartment. Apartment, you don't need to have the premier location. You just have to be near, I guess, a freeway on-ramp or something like that. You don't have to be in the center of downtown. Now, you can also get into industrial. So industrial is the fourth type of asset class. And industrial, usually, these types of buildings are more in a warehouse district, storage, that sort of thing. Same thing. They're easier lease negotiations because you're typically dealing with 1, maybe 2 tenants. So you have flex space, you have a owner-operator of maybe a plumber. He owns a plumbing company for X amount of years. He's saving all his inventory and he has his trucks parked in there, something like that. Now, when you get into special use, like a car wash, maybe a church, those are really more niche-y. And that's someone who typically has a business philosophy behind it. They're not looking for the real estate to rent out, right? They're looking for more ownership of the business and they want to run an operation. Now, the other types of properties, you don't have to own the business in the office building, right? You could have multiple tenants and you could work them out that way. So it really depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to do. So look at what's easier for you to get around, what you have experience with, and that's definitely a good way to start. Or even if you're not starting, if you want to diverse a little bit, grow that portfolio. So you have multifamily apartments, then you have retail, kind of more business structured. You have office, and then you have industrial. After industrial, you have your special type of classes. I really wouldn't focus on that too much. Like I said, that's more of a car wash, more specialty. I really wouldn't get into that right away for my first investment. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions on it, please let me know.